It was business as usual for Penn State wrestling over in College Park, Maryland on Sunday. However, we did get answers to some of the remaining questions surrounding Cale Sanderson's team.
You are Locked On Nittany Lions, your daily podcast on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, Penn State fans? That is right. You are Locked On Nittany Lions. Thanks so much for making us your first listen and watch every single day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Zach Seyko, bringing you all things Penn State sports coverage. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers, when you join today, you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more is a winner. That's all you got to do is bet $5, at least $5. And if it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn to get started. And if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast for all the latest around football, recruiting, men's basketball, men's hockey. In today's episode, wrestling. Penn State wrestling, Cale Sanderson went over to College Park and they beat up on the Terrapins 42-6. We're going to recap this one in the first segment, talk about some takeaways from the dual meet. And then, is it Tyler Kasak or David Evans? We finally got the answer to that at 149. And then looking ahead to Penn State's opponent, Ohio State. That's coming up next on the upcoming Friday, February 2nd. Also talking about some beef between Cale Sanderson and Casey Cunningham and Maryland's head coach. Some post-dual meet, I don't want to say theatrics, but just some interesting, a little bit of an exchange in the handshake line. But let's begin. 42-6 was the final score between Penn State and Maryland in this dual meet. Penn State now improves to 7-0, 4-0 in conference. This was expected. It was business as usual. If there's anything I'm surprised about, it's the fact that they even allowed 6 points to the Terrapins. And we got to start with this guy. At 165 pounds, Mitchell Mesenbrink just continues to be on a tear. This guy is going to the finals at 165. You can't convince me otherwise. You really can't. Now I know how good this class is at 165. This weight class is one of the best is probably one of the best out of all the groupings, I would say, if not the best. So it's nothing to bat an eye at here. You have Keegan O'Toole, David Carr, who's a former champion in his own right, Mikey Caliendo, and Dean Hamady, who Mesenbrink's probably going to see at some point, Caliendo and Hamady. But he'll eventually see those two Big Ten tournament, of course. Mesenbrink and Penn State are going to wrestle Iowa, not in the not too distant future here. And that's when he will see Caliendo. But if I'm being completely unbiased, looking at the way that the only reason that Mesenbrink is not ranked higher, I mean, I feel like 7 is still underrated. He's number 7 at this point in time. But the reason it is still because he's a newcomer. He's fresh into the wrestling rankings this season. The strong outing that he's had over the course, of course, him transferring into Penn State. So I don't want to call him, he's not a no name, but I feel like the people who make the rankings for wrestling are still saying, okay, we need you to continue to show us, to prove it to us. And I feel like at this point, Mesenbrink, with the way that he has wrestled, it's past any doubt at this point just how good he is. If I'm being unbiased, truly unbiased, I would rank him 3rd. I would. A lot of these other wrestlers have 1 loss. Mesenbrink is still undefeated. I would rank him 3rd behind Keegan O'Toole and David Carr. And why? Because Carr is a former champion and O'Toole has been to the finals, of course. So, but that's me personally. But and I know he pinned an unranked wrestler against Maryland, but it's just the style of wrestling. It's not this passiveness. It's aggressive. He just gets after it. No mercy. I like that kind of attacking style, the no mercy. He's smart. We saw that in the interview, right? We have the interview. If you want to go see that, check it out in the Locked On Nittany Lions YouTube channel, wherever you get your podcast. Listen to it back. But how intelligent he is. He's a quick thinker. And he's drawing comparisons to David Taylor and Jason Nolf. Okay, I know those are lofty expectations. I'm not going to be the one to pound that drum. However, when Penn State fans, Penn State spectators, wrestling spectators are starting to group you with some of the best wrestlers of all time, you know you're doing the right thing. So Mitchell Mesenbrink, continue. If there's any doubt about how good he is, if you were thinking, well, fringe All-American contender. No, he is a finals contender. He is at least making it to the semifinals. And if he doesn't make it to the finals, I'm expecting him to make it to the championship. It also depends what path he takes, right? Where is he going to be seated? Is he going to continue to wrestle well and win a Big Ten title, for example, and probably be, I don't think, unless O'Toole loses, Mesenbrink's probably going to be the second or third seed, depending on what happens. And of course, the one against Caliendo is really where we're going to see how far along Mesenbrink is. Aaron Brooks is just a machine in his own right, too. So all the glory and praise are going to the redshirt freshman, but how about the veteran within the program? 13-4 victory, major decision over number 5 Jackson Smith. That is how big the gap is here between Aaron Brooks, who moves up to this weight class, right? He's moving up he's already moved up from 184 to 197, but this is his first season at Penn State in the 197 class. And he's just casually putting a major decision together against the 5th best wrestler in the country. This is someone he's probably maybe going to see, depending on how the bracket is, at the Big Ten tournament at 197, but just utter dominance. Probably felt good for Brooks to return home and do that, but this is how big the gap is for Aaron Brooks. Brooks is just on a different level. If he doesn't win 197, I will be very surprised. That's truly a disappointment if he doesn't win at 197, but he's already taken on those. Again, multi-time champion. He's returning from last year. He's a defending champion at 184. Now he's trying to do the same at 197. It was good to see Carter Starachi back in the lineup. So that was one of the questions that was answered. I guess a couple of them here. Just how good is Mesenbrink continue? Is he going to continue to ride the hot streak? Of course, there's David Evans and Tyler Kasak, which we're going to address in the next segment. But Carter Starachi, was this serious? What was this? An injury, an illness? We were hearing different things, but it's good that he had this full week of rest. Good tune-up dual meet for him against Maryland. And Carter Starachi back in the lineup, pinned his opponent. He did pin his opponent, so I'm glad there wasn't anything missing in the tank when it came to Carter Starachi's wrestling match, his head-to-head matchup. Some of the other results, again, Penn State winning 42-6, staying undefeated, but no shocker here. No shocker here. Number 1 in the country, and as dominant as they are for a reason. One of the best programs of all time across any sport, right? But we'll go down the weight classes at 120, or go up, I should say. At 125, Braden Davis gets a tech fall over his opponent. Now, no Aaron Nagao in this one at 133, but Baylor Shunk, who stepped in, lost to a ranked Braxton Brown of Maryland 8-3. Bo Bartlett defeated his opponent, Cal Miller. And at 149, Connor Pierce stepped in, since Tyler Kasak and David Evans did not wrestle in this dual meet. That was interesting, but there's a reason why. Again, we're going to discuss that very soon, so stick around here. But Connor Pierce stepped in, lost to a ranked Ethan Miller, talented Ethan Miller, number 14th in the country. Levi Haines handled business, 15-0 tech fall over his opponent. We talked about Mitchell Mesenbrink winning. He pinned his opponent, Ryan Money. Carter Starachi with a pin, of course. Bernie Truax pinned his opponent, so back-to-back pins. Nice to see from Penn State. Aaron Brooks, we talked about his victory over Jackson Smith. And Greg Kervliet finished it off with a pin of his own against Jordan Gabriel. So 42-6, the final, and Penn State is going to wrestle Ohio State on February 2nd at 6:30 in Rec Hall, which we will discuss more in the final segment. So I encourage you to stick around. But like I said, Tyler Kasak, David Evans, not present for this dual meet because they were really busy. They actually had other plans going on. They were in a tournament. Both of them were registered in a tournament hosted by Lock Haven. What happened? We have that answer at 149. We're going to discuss that coming up in just a moment. And today's episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. What brings home the winning trophy is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to its peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, to exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into that MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. That is ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay guaranteed fit, only available to U.S. customers. And the Locked On Podcast Network is making history. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering each and every league. Go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Tyler Kasak, David Evans, who is going to be the starter going forward at 149. Well, we finally got some clarity because both of these two were registered at an open tournament. Penn State, Cale Sanderson sent 7 Penn State wrestlers to Lock Haven's open tournament. Matt Town, too, it was. And this was strategic because, yes, you can have a wrestle off in the mat room at practice. Okay, that's fine. But how about do it in a tournament setting? That is why this happened, for the coaches to see, okay, who is going to be our starting moving forward? Because it was very close. As Jeff Byers, the voice of Penn State wrestling, came on this show and told us exactly that Tyler Kasak and David Evans were very close, neck and neck. And guess what? Those two were registered at 149 pounds, and they met in the championship bout. If you can believe that. I know. What a shocker, right? But the winner, most likely taking that spot, was Tyler Kasak. Tyler Kasak won that match 4-2. Remember, Kasak was ranked 12th at this moment in time by the rankings and defeated Evans, who again held his own, showed up well against Michigan. Michigan State didn't know exactly what was going on with Kasak. We heard about maybe possibly an illness, what they were going to do with his eligibility moving forward. But it seems that, again, Kasak looks like he's now, this is all but confirmed. Him winning this tournament at 149 and beating David Evans head to head probably gives him a chance, unless there is something with the eligibility here, unless there's something that I don't know. So this is truly speculation. I am not reporting anything, but we'll talk to Cale Sanderson on Tuesday. We'll get that official answer. Hey, is Kasak going to be the guy, since he had this impressive performance, went 4-0 at the tournament, beat fellow teammate Evans, and is now going to be the guy at 149? Again, he's earned it. Kasak has earned it. Now, David Evans, again, coming in second and losing your teammate is not bad at all. It's not that Evans doesn't deserve to be in the lineup either, but somebody else does, and that person is true freshman Tyler Kasak. Other contenders as well, that really this open mat tournament is good to see what the future of Penn State wrestling holds. And at 184, I mean, Josh Barr, if it wasn't for Bernie Truax coming in at 184 and being that graduate transfer, right? Josh Barr, I would feel very comfortable with him as the starter for Penn State wrestling this season. Do I think he'd win a national title as a starter? Probably not. But is there a chance that he would, it'd probably be a fringe All-America type of conversation, because anytime he does wrestle, he dominates. He's had spot starts, and he wiped the floor with the competition once again at 184. Penn State is in good hands when he takes over as the starter next season after Truax leaves. And then at 197 pounds, sophomore Lucas Cochran, who wrestled for Greg Kervliet. Remember, he came in and started for Kervliet at heavyweight. That is not his position. He is not a heavyweight wrestler. He is a 197-pound wrestler. And giving up all that weight, still won against the Spartans, went into this tournament, took the crown at 197 as well. So the future for Penn State wrestling is in good hands at 149 with Kasak, but also 184, 197 with Barr and Cochran. But I've been very impressed with Tyler Kasak at this point. So for those of you who don't know, I've actually done wrestling play-by-play at the high school level, got to go to the regional and state tournaments and see some of these wrestlers in action. So Tyler Kasak, Carter Starachi, when they were wrestling in the state of Pennsylvania at the high school level. So I am familiar with some of them leading up to their time at Penn State, and some of the other competition that has been on, that are at other programs that are from the state of Pennsylvania and are now top 10, top 15 wrestlers. So a lot of these names are familiar to me. And that's why it is so impressive for someone, Tyler Kasak, who was a freshman, a sophomore at the high school level, seeing him in person just dominate the way he was. And now as a true freshman at Penn State, how it all comes full circle like this is just nothing short of it. You saw it on display early on. And you said, that kid has a special future wherever he decides to wrestle, ultimately commits to Penn State, and he's making an impact as a first-year wrestler with the Nittany Lions. But there's still more for this Penn State wrestling team. So now we have some of those questions answered. And we'll, of course, get more perspective from Cale Sanderson from his Tuesday press conference. But Penn State's got Ohio State on the horizon. And was there beef between Cale Sanderson and company and Maryland's head coach, as the handshake didn't go all too well at the end of the dual meet? We're going to discuss that on the other side of this break. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel, the official sports book of Locked On. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Can you believe that? We can say Super Bowl now in these promos. If you're like me, you're excited for Super Bowl Sunday, and it's about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. Now, of course, I love the game. I love the commercials. I like spending time with friends and family and enjoying all that great food for your Super Bowl Sunday. And it's a holiday for everybody, so I hope you celebrate accordingly. Now, the Super Bowl bets. That's right. FanDuel has so many ways for you to end the season on a W, or 2 or 3 maybe. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more. The lines are already available. You can go check out passing yards for Brock Purdy, passing yards for Patrick Mahomes, rushing yards, who is going to score that touchdown. I think Travis Kelce is going to score the first touchdown. And new customers, when you join today, you will get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And remember, if you're not already, become an everydayer. Subscribe to Locked On Nittany Lions on YouTube and wherever you get your podcast for all the latest analysis around your favorite Penn State sports, whether it's football, recruiting, men's basketball, men's hockey, wrestling. It's all right here on Locked On Nittany Lions. And in this final segment, let's look ahead as Penn State wrestling is going to take on Ohio State this upcoming Friday, February 2nd. And it should be a fun one, obviously. Now, this one isn't in the Bryce Jordan Center. That one's going to go to Rutgers. It'll be in Rec Hall. So tradition is key. But the Buckeyes are coming in ranked number 7. But this should be, again, a case where Penn State wins this one. Penn State wins it handedly. But with Maryland being a nice tune-up match, there are a lot of exciting head-to-head battles between the Nittany Lions and the Buckeyes here. It's some key weight classes, most of them on the lower half of the weights, and starting at 125. Braden Davis, true freshman, going up against Brendan McCrone, fellow freshman as well. Now, I know Davis is in the top 5, and McCrone is just kind of at the bottom of the rankings, but McCrone early in the season pinned the former #1 wrestler at 125. So I'm thinking Davis still wins this one, but McCrone can certainly hold his own, even though he's coming into this dual meet with 7 losses. Now, at 133, this one is one to keep an eye on. Aaron Nagao and Nick Bazakis. I think that one will be interesting. At 141, I have this one circled because this is going to be Bo Bartlett against Jesse Mendez, #2 versus #3. This would be a huge statement win for Bo Bartlett if he is able to do this. We've seen Bartlett, of course, be around the All-America conversation and everything. He definitely holds his own. But I want to see him take that next step into the elite. This is a true finals contender. 141 is certainly wide open for him to take. And this is a big test going up against your counterpart at #3. Could easily switch spots, or Bartlett could create some more distance between himself and Mr. Mendez. And then at 149, Tyler Kasak. Are we anticipating that he is officially the starter? Again, winning that wrestle-off against David Evans at the Open Tournament at Lock Haven. Tyler Kasak against Dylan D'Amelio. Good test to see if Kasak is going to, again, stay focused now that he is officially the starter. That's behind him now. He's got to look forward and pay attention to what's ahead of him. D'Amelio is certainly no slouch. At 157, Levi Haines, #1 wrestler, going up against one that is ranked in the teens, Patty Gallagher. anytime you just get a top 25 matchup, that's one always to look forward to. And they could see each other again in the Big Ten tournament when it matters. And then at 174, I'm not implying that Carter Starachi has anything to worry about. Carter Starachi will win this one, but freshman on the other side, again, because I've covered high school wrestling in the state of Pennsylvania, been to states multiple times, called play-by-play for local radio stations for those matches, and to see Rocco Welsh be as successful as he is at Ohio State, seeing him wrestle in person multiple times and just how dominant he was at the high school level. So this is just kind of like, hey, take a trip down memory lane here. And Rocco Welsh at 174, I just want to see where he's at. I know that Carter Starachi is going to be a buzzsaw and ruin his night, but I am eager to see where Welsh is, given the fact that I've just seen him at the high school level wrestle as competitively as he did. Wish he could have gone to Penn State, but Penn State obviously had different plans at those weight classes, and there was room for him. And he's a Buckeye. I don't know how much I want to talk him up, but Welsh is good, and he will be better in due time. This is going to be a reality check from Carter Starachi here. And then we'll wrap up this episode with the fact that, there was a little bit of a confrontation and nothing spiraled out of control, but this one was caught by the TV broadcast and went a little bit viral amongst us Penn State media. And Cale Sanderson and Casey Cunningham getting into it, if you will, with the Maryland head coach, Alex Clemson. So they were in the handshake line, and there was a brief pause, and it didn't seem like Clemson and Sanderson were on too good of terms. But then there was if you can read lips, and it was very obvious what he was saying to Coach Cunningham. He said, "No, you don't have to pin." So what does that even mean? No, you don't have to pin. What is Maryland's coach trying to say? Now, Carter Starachi's stuck up for Coach Cunningham, Coach Sanderson, and went to social media, Twitter, formerly known as X, and said, he would have folded him like an accordion if it was Cunningham versus Clemson in a wrestling match. Starachi's very funny here. So he defended his coach, and rightfully so. But let's add some context, because what does this mean? Why is Clemson saying to Penn State, no, you're not allowed to pin my team, pin the opponents? Well, no, your team shouldn't be pinnable. Why are they getting pinned in the first place? Well, so this is probably in reference to Starachi's match itself. Starachi could have tech-falled his opponent in the first period, maybe. There's, I guess, speculation that he might have. I'm not saying this. This isn't my opinion. This is other people's opinion around wrestling talking about this. And they said that Starachi was avoiding the tech ball. One more takedown with 3 points would have been an official tech ball to end the first period. They went into the second period, and that's where Starachi ended up getting the pin and that extra bonus point there. So Clemson seems to be a little upset. I guess this maybe is a bit of wrestling etiquette that I'm not familiar with. I've covered wrestling. I've never wrestled, actually. I'll be honest here. I've never wrestled. However, I've covered the sport and called it for play-by-play. But so if I'm missing some wrestling etiquette here, that Starachi and Penn State did something wrong in this case, or Cale Sanderson and Casey Cunningham told Starachi something, and that's what Clemson's upset about. Clemson, from Maryland's perspective, if you're going to be upset about anything, the difference between a 41-6 score and a 42-6 score, you're looking at the wrong thing when you take a look at that box score, when you look at the result. You need to grind your axe, not with Cale Sanderson, but your entire team, because the score was 42-6. What was the difference if it was 41-6? Were you going to be less upset? I think you were directing your energy at the wrong people in this case. Take the loss, own it, and maybe don't have your team get pinned so many times, because it wasn't only Starachi's opponent that got pinned. It was Mesenbrink's. It was Kervliet's, and so on and so forth. And you're going to be upset about one bonus point, a tech fall between a pin. Don't get pinned. That's the honest part of it all. Don't get pinned. But I guess I understand the frustration, but maybe the frustration needs to be directed at other at wrestlers, your coaching staff, not at Penn State's coaching staff. You lost 42-6. Just own up to it. It's okay. Penn State's really good at wrestling, and Cale Sanderson has built a really good program. That's going to end it here for this edition of Locked On Nittany Lions. We got to talk some more basketball as Penn State lost to Minnesota at home. That was one I was not expecting, but here we are. Now, Penn State's got to turn around and go on the road and see how they can adjust. We're going to bring back Adam Sheets onto the show to talk about just that and see where Mike Rhodes' squad goes moving forward. We're going to have Jeff Byers back on the show very soon. We're going to talk about Ohio State and Penn State more in depth in upcoming episodes. And of course, football's getting into winter workouts very soon, spring football. All of that and more will be right here on Locked On Nittany Lions. Stay tuned.